Friends, countrymen, Ontarians, welcome to the Wild Ontario Podcast, episode 6. Today, we will be talking with Curtis Matwishyn. He is a fellow from Saskatchewan, and he is the survivor of this bear attack that is actually blowing up on the internet. You know, our posting of the video has got 1.7 million views so far. Huge amount of controversy in the comments about what he did. You know, what is it the right way to act or not? And huge amount of learnings in this conversation about bear safety and what to do in the woods with both grizzlies, but also with the black bears here that are found in Ontario, as this black bear encounter was a black bear, not a grizzly bear, with Curtis in Saskatchewan. Curtis is a wildfire crew chief. He's out there fighting forest fires all the time, and an employee of the National Park System here in Canada. So fascinating conversation. Not an Ontarian, a Saskatchewanian, or Saskatchewinner, as Curtis says, but we interview him nonetheless. Enjoy this conversation with Curtis Matwishyn, ladies and gentlemen.
So we're here with Curtis, and your last name is Matwishyn. Is that how to pronounce it?
Yeah, Matwishyn.
Matwishyn, got it. Okay. What ancestry is that?
That's actually Ukrainian. My father's side of the family was from Ukraine and been in Canada for over 100 years, but yeah, still a good Ukrainian name.
Oh my goodness, man. Cool. Okay. Got that origin. Interesting, man. Yeah, so you are a Saskatchewanian. Is that correct?
Saskatchewanian, or as my uncle says, Saskatchewinner. So whichever one suits your preference.
Nice, man. Excellent. Well, this is the Wild Ontario podcast, and 95% of our audience is Ontario, but you know what? You seem like a pretty cool guy, man. So I think we're going to have to make you an honorary Ontarian, for the day. But Curtis, why don't you tell us where you are? So we're going to be talking today about your bear attack experience, which is absolutely fascinating, my friend. That video got so many views. Holy cow, when I reposted it onto our TikTok and Instagram. But Curtis, why don't you tell us, where are you right now? What do you do in terms of why do you spend all this time outside? And just get us up to speed on the Curtis lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. So I was supposed to be talking to you from beautiful Waskesiu Lake in Prince Albert National Park. But so I was, before this, I was away for a few weeks up in Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories, working on a fire. And then timing out perfectly. I had a wedding from an old fire buddy in Banff National Park just after that. So I got home from Fort Smith. Next day, turned around, got in a camper van and booted it on down to the Rockies. So spent some time in Waterton, then in Banff. So supposed to be at work today back in Saskatchewan, but the alternator in our camper van decided to kick the bucket yesterday on the way home. So we are in Hannah, Alberta, home with Nickelback. So that's where we spent last night. So we're hoping that a garage has an alternator for us this morning. If not, might be stuck here for a few more days, but we'll make the most of it.
Oh my God, Curtis. Well, if it's the home of Nickelback, is it Chad Kroeger? Is he the lead singer of
Chad Kroeger? Certainly is.
Now, I think there's a very high probability it was Chad Kroeger himself that took out your alternator. So
I think you're right. And he's probably here because it's Thanksgiving. So I wouldn't doubt
it. Holy cow, man, that's crazy. Well, sorry, RIP to your alternator. That's nuts, man. So you were up in Fort Smith. So you are, what is the correct terminology? Is it forest firefighter, or what? How do you describe that kind of position?
Yeah, I guess forest fire or wildland fire. So I'm a crew leader with Parks Canada. Currently used to work for Alberta Wildfire, but I've been doing that since 2011.
Wow. So you work specifically for Parks Canada, so you're only dealing with fires in national parks?
Not quite the case. That is our main responsibility. That's our jurisdiction. But within Canada and even the broader wildfire partners across the world, we can be sent away to other agencies. So that was working within Wood Buffalo National Park. I had lots of coworkers, worked in Alberta, worked in BC this year. So we do share resources among all of our fire agencies in Canada and actually across the world as well.
Interesting, man. So Wood Buffalo National Park, is that not our biggest national park? It's huge, right?
It is massive. I should know this as working for Parks Canada, but it's definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest. But yeah, it is a massive chunk of land up in northern Alberta that borders the Northwest Territories, and yeah, just a big swath of boreal, and you have some amazing wetlands and salt plains and wood bison, as the name suggests. Got to see them a few times while I was up there, so it's yeah, a nice experience up there when it's not on fire. So thankfully, we're getting to the end of the season, and hopefully, it's all been put to bed here soon.
When it's not on fire, man. That's right. Holy cow. I guess like, fire is really a annual quote unquote natural part of the whole boreal forest. Like it's like the word that you said, when it's not on fire, fires kind of happen all the time, right? Like for folks that are from the south of Canada that are living in like, climate zone 5 or 6 or 4, where there's no boreal, we're not as used to fire, but up there, fire is a pretty common thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that community for sure is used to fire being around it. And it is a natural part of the ecosystem, as you said. But this year was a historic year. It was the most area burned in Wood Buffalo National Park, I believe, ever. They had well over 1 million hectares of fire within 10, 15 kilometers of the community. So it was a spectacular in a bad way fire season for them. Just thankfully, the community wasn't directly impacted by fire, but it did get very close. But thankfully, yeah, the work of all the agencies up there, Alberta, Parks Canada, Northwest Territories, did a heck of a job in protecting that community. And hard time for a lot of people. They were out of their homes for, I believe, almost over a month. So yeah, so it was a particularly challenging fire season up there among many other places in Canada.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Holy cow. And as a crew chief, is it kind of like an army platoon, like you're leading, 10 to 16 guys kind of situation? And are you being deposited by, helicopter or plane into certain locations and dropped off for a certain amount of time? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so it depends. My crew itself that I work with on a daily basis is a 4-person initial attack crew. So myself and 3 others. But when there is a large fire, we'll go for, instead of initial attack, we'll do what's called sustained action. And that's when you're working on a large wildfire for around 14 days usually. Yeah, so either we might be our own unit or we might get tagged on with another. Sometimes we'll put together 20 packs. So what we call a unit crew, or similar to a hotshot crew down in the States. So yeah, it depends on what the fire calls for. This year, we did our 4-person crew, went up there, and you just get your assignments, your chunk of line, and you'll work with other crews. Yeah, it depends on the access. You might be going in by helicopter, which we did for the first half of the shift, and then after that, the rest was road access. We use lots of different cool equipment. I don't know if you've ever seen the Sherps, which is like the ultimate kind of go anywhere vehicle on land and water. Got to ride in those before. We use Nodwells, Haglins. Yeah, just a lot of interesting heavy equipment, and get to fly around quite a bit, which is definitely a perk of the job, and get to work with a lot of cool aircraft as well. So yeah, it just whatever the fire dictates and kind of what the landscape's like and that kind of thing. It's ideal if you can get in by ground, because that's our best access and egress if something happens, you need to get out of there quickly. But there is times where we do have to fly in, and just got to make sure we have good safety zones and escape routes and good extraction points when we're out there. So, but yeah, my typical crew is a 4-person crew.
4-person, interesting, man. Jesus, the way you describe it, it sounds like a lot of Vietnam War movies that I've seen, man.
Yeah, I think it's everybody has to listen to Fortunate Son at least once when they're flying in the helicopter in our job.
That's hilarious. Oh man, I just imagine blasting. Yeah, like what is it? Wagner's. What is the title of that song?
I can hear it in my mind. I'm not sure
Ride
what
of
the
the
actual
Valkyries.
title is. Yeah, that
Yeah.
one.
Ride,
Yeah, and it's
Ride
funny
of the
you
Valkyries.
actually you say Vietnam. They a lot of our medium helicopters, I believe the airframes are the Hueys that were used in Vietnam. and they've just continued to be used. So supposedly, quite a few of our aircraft, at least the airframe, were actually used in Vietnam. This is a lot of military surplus that then went over to civilian use afterwards.
No shit, man. Holy cow. That's nuts. That's nuts. And the other thing up about in Wood Buffalo National Park, it's so remote that there's a 0% chance that Chad Kroger will find you and try to sabotage
And
your
steal
life.
your alternator. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's
Safe
another
up there.
positive up
For
there.
now.
So do you, like, when you're out in the bush like this, you know, this very, you're now like a you know, internet celebrity with your bear attack video, my friend. Do you guys run into bears when you're out in the bush, you know, with forest fires, or is there so much commotion with fires? Like, is there an energy, the smoke? Can animals sense this, and are they all kind of on the move and just trying to get out of Dodge when forest fires are happening? Like, what's the frequency of running into either grizzlies or black bears where you're you know, doing your work?
Yeah, so definitely animals do have a sense of when there is a fire in the area. They will move away from it. So it's, that being said, like, so if you're inside the black, you're not likely to see a bear, but we're usually not, we're on the edge, right? Like, we're in between the green and the burn. So once the fire has kind of done a big run, and if it's just kind of smoldering, bears will definitely be on that edge. So it's not uncommon to see bears when we're on the line, but lots of times, like you said, we're working around lots of heavy equipment. We have chainsaws running, loud pumps, aircraft flying overhead. So usually bears will kind of make their way away from where all that commotion's happening. But as you know, every animal is a little bit different, and depending on their experience of if they've had food rewards, that kind of thing, and they view people as a source of actual food, especially if it's, say, an area where there's some hunting going, bear baiting, that kind of thing, where they might view human activity as a source of food. We do definitely have bears, and can be some problem bears too sometimes on the line. Thankfully, I've never had any major issues, but actually I wasn't in a role on the crew on this last fire. I got pulled into the Instant Man team, but the crew I was supposed to be working with, there was an aggressive bear on their line. And even with chainsaws and everybody kind of in a group yelling, it was a black bear, but just because it's a black bear, as we'll talk about, doesn't mean it's not aggressive. So yeah, they ended up having to pull off of that line for the day, and then they got in some staff from the Northwest Territories that were successful in trapping the bear. So no, it's that's just another thing we got to think about when we're out there on the line. Obviously, you're kind of focused on the fire, but there is all those other hazards that are outside of the fire. And yeah, especially animals that get displaced from the wildfire. So even if you're in a community or that kind of thing near a fire, you can expect to see a lot more wildlife around if there has been a large fire near you, because animals are usually pretty good at getting away from them, but then they're displaced, and you'll see them in areas where you might not see them, and in numbers that you wouldn't normally either.
Holy cow, man. It is like the Vietnam War, because you're fighting fire with heavy equipment.
Wildlife refugees.
Yeah, man. It's like, watch out for Charlie. He's in the beneath ground tunnels. He's in the trees, you know, because you get attacked by bears from behind. Holy cow. So they actually,
it's not yet. That's your words, not mine. It's pretty safe. It's no, it's a dynamic environment, as you said. Anytime you're in the forest, you have to expect to run into a wildlife like that and be prepared to deal with it for sure.
Right, man. So they pulled that crew off the line because the bear was just not backing down, and they sent in someone to trap it. So did they trap it and then relocate it, like right in the middle of all this commotion going on?
I'm not sure what the process was for them. I just heard that it had been trapped, and I think the crew were able to, like, they didn't get actually fully pulled off the line. I think they were just moved to another section. They said, like, all right, this bear obviously is not wanting to leave us alone, so we'll go and work a different chunk of line for today. And then so they basically kind of got all their stuff packed up, moved on out, called it in, and then they got it set up. And yeah, I think the trap was successful within a day or two. So yeah, I know some places they'll relocate depending on if it's a bear that's had issues before. They might have to destroy the bear, but I'm not sure what happened with this particular individual.
Wow, man. Holy cow. And so what do they train you when you're being, first trained as a recruit, as a wildland fire person? Do you do bear specific training? I imagine you would, right?
Yeah, there's a module of just kind of wilderness safety, that kind of thing within our training program. So talks about just kind of the basics of being safe in bear country, and other wildlife as well, but specifically how to avoid it. So always cleaning up, never throwing your apple cores or anything like that around the line, because those kinds of things are attractants for wildlife. And if that happens more often, they'll start to frequent it. Then also just kind of some bear behavior, how to react when you do see a bear, how to properly, yeah, basically try to get it to go in the other direction. And if things happen like in my video, we do. I don't know if in our wildland fire training we've done the bear spray, but I also did an office job in fire management and did some more kind of wildlife conflict stuff within our park as well. So I definitely got the opportunity to deploy training bear spray, and also through my education of forestry, I myself have had a bit more education. But they do definitely go over the basics of working in bear country, and like if we're on a fire and there is bears spotted, at our safety briefing in the morning, we'll do reminders, that kind of thing, of what to do if you do see a bear and that kind of thing.
Interesting, man. And so do you guys have, like, are you carrying bear spray? Is there someone carrying a firearm? And if so, what kind of firearm, like on a crew, even a 4-person crew or the bigger hotshot crews? Like what kind of actual tools are you guys carrying to help you in these scenarios?
Yeah, so no firearms. No, we don't have anything like that. We generally will have bear spray offered to us. It's up to the crew whether or not you want to take that. I always opt for it. Can be a little bit challenging if you are flying an aircraft, because you can't have the bear spray in your compartments or inside the aircraft. So we generally have to get a fly safe canister, and you hope that you have a basket on your helicopter as well. But usually the pilots are pretty good, even if it's an internal outside of the main compartment that you're in. They'll usually be pretty good if you have that fly safe canister. So yeah, I try to take it with me whenever I go, especially since my experience, but even before that. But yeah, the fact that people have chainsaws and pumps, and well, we've even had helicopters, call in helicopters to come and haze off a bear that doesn't want to go on our land. So kind of low level flights to kind of scare away those bears if they are starting to frequent our line a bit more. But yeah, we do have that as a tool for us, and I encourage any wildland firefighter, if it's being offered, or even if not, ask for it if you're going to bear country, because yeah, definitely one of the things we got to consider at all times.
Holy cow, man. Wow. That's super interesting. And then, so yeah, you're speaking of, you mentioned your quote unquote experience. So this video that is raging across the internet now, and dude, I cannot tell you the amount of arguing in the comments,
Oh, yeah.
my friend. It is unreal. Like people getting absolutely furious, arguing about, you know, Curtis did this guy do it right? The main thing is the argument about, should he have had a gun or should he have had a canister of bear spray? My
Mhm.
whole point in resharing your video was, not only did I think it's like a classic textbook example of exactly what to do, like you acted so well, but you were so calm, you were so collected, but also that my big thing, the majority of people don't bring anything. Like if you think about your average kind of citizen who does not have a firearms license, I think in Ontario here, only 5% of Ontarians actually have a firearms license. So
Mhm.
majority of people I know, when they go out camping into the bush, when they go out hiking, they don't bring anything, right? So that was my whole point when I saw your video. I was like, oh my God, this guy, what a pro. So maybe go through, yeah, Curtis, maybe tell your story with this, your bear encounter that is famous on the internet now. And, where were you? What were you doing? Because it sounds like in your downtime, you spend a lot of time out in the bush camping, right?
Yeah, camping and photography is kind of my main passion. So I do a lot of wildlife and landscape photography. So yeah, this was last year, last week of May. So just kind of when bears are really becoming active out of hibernation, it's start of summer. So we were in Prince Albert National Park where I live, so at Waskesiu Lake. Excuse me. And yeah, we had just gone for a hike with my dog and my wife. And anytime I'm around the park, I always bring my camera in my car and always bring my bear spray and that kind of thing. Always just prepared to try to get some photos of a bear if I do see it, because it's not uncommon where we live. So we were driving back from that hike, and there's an area of the park that we actually do a prescribed fire every year in the spring, kind of hazard reduction for the community. We burn off this meadow before in the spring so that we don't have dead grass if there is a fire that encroaches on the town. And I've always thought this area, because we've done it continuously, we've really opened it up into a nice meadow. So beautiful kind of area that I've always thought that would be amazing with a bear in it. And I've been surprised I haven't ever seen a bear in that meadow, because I think it's good forage, that kind of thing. So this time on our drive home, finally saw a bear in the meadow. So normally if I do see a bear and I'm in my vehicle, best thing to do is just pull over where you can, use your long zoom lens, and don't even get out of your car. Just shoot from your car. One of the things, I guess it's a positive and a negative, but bears are especially in national parks, they're used to vehicles. Generally it's safer for you, and they actually feel less threatened if it's just a vehicle, because they go by all the time, so they're very used to the presence. So but I couldn't do that in this scenario, because there's no shoulder on the highway, and it's kind of an S curve that's a bit of a blind turn, and there is people that drive quite fast around there. So it wasn't safe for me just to pull over on the side. So like I said, I know this area very well, so I knew that there was a turn off the highway just 100 meters up. So I went up there, I grabbed my camera, my bear spray, and I got out, and I was going to walk back just in the ditch. Bear would have been more than 100 meters away, so I felt comfortable being on foot there, especially with my bear spray. But when I got out, I noticed the bear wasn't there anymore, and I didn't see it cross the road. So I figured, all right, it probably moved further into the meadow, which would have been south of me, where you couldn't see it from the road. And like I said, I know this area very well. I know that there's a trail that kind of goes around and goes to the edge of the bush line that borders that meadow. So I figured, hey, I got my zoom lens, I got my bear spray. I do wildlife photography. I'm comfortable around bears. So I figured, okay, I'm going to go on the trail and see if I can grab a shot of this bear. Asked my wife if she wanted to come with me. She said, hell no, that's a bear. She's a little bit more nervous around them than I am, so she's probably smarter than me. But yeah, so I got on the trail. It was quite a strong wind. I'm guessing around 20 to 30 K, pretty consistent. That was coming from the west. So this was actually would have been blowing my scent right towards the bear. So if you know much about bears, you know that they have an amazing sense of smell, pretty terrible vision actually, but they can smell a person from a long ways away. So lots of times a normal bear, if they catch scent of a person in their area, they're just going to move away. So I was kind of thinking that might happen here. So it'll smell me before I can see it, and it might just already move off. But I did at that point, thought I got lucky. And the bear was still in the meadow, just as I thought. So it was kind of doing its thing. I'm digging around for grubs in the ground, kind of scratching on trees. And so I was about 100 meters away, started taking some photos. I got off the trail, kind of stupidly like army crawled up a hill, but bears can't really see you if you're more than 30 meters away. So pointless. But you could tell it caught scent to me, standing up, kind of sniffing in the general direction of where the wind was blowing. So I saw, okay, bear knows I'm here. So, and then it starts to walk back towards the trail and towards the woods. So I figured, okay, this bear is now moving on, like most do once they catch sight of it or scent of a human. So I get back to the trail and I set up with my camera, planning on taking a few shots as it crosses the trail, thinking it's just going to go into the woods. So snap a few photos. It hits the trail. It does kind of go to the bush, but then it turns around and comes back to the trail. So then it starts to slowly wander down the trail. So I'm snapping a few photos, and obviously it's like, okay, well, I guess this bear is continuing on this way, and snapping photos. But then I'm realizing I'm kind of zooming back in. So I put the camera down, and now the bear is probably 50 meters, 40 meters away. So that's too close. You don't ever want to be, you try to avoid being closer than 100 meters from a bear. So at this point, yeah, it's time to stop snapping photos, time to try to scare this bear away. So get out my bear spray and I start waving my arms and yelling at it and stamping around and just, yeah, screaming out, hey bear, hey bear. And the bear just kind of looks at me and it's hi and it doesn't care at all. So looks up, but then it just continues to kind of slowly wander down that path. So like obviously, yeah, we live in a resort town. I'm thinking this bear is likely not afraid of people, but thinking bears are lazy just like us. They want to do the path of least resistance if they're going somewhere. So now I'm thinking, okay, this bear just wants to go down this path. And when you're encountering bears, you always want to leave them an out. Sometimes they have a direction they want to travel for a specific reason. So it's good to just try to get a sense of that and try to give it a clear path where you're out of its way and where it wants to go. So that's what I did. I stepped into the meadow, probably went about 30 feet into the meadow, and just waited for this bear to hopefully pass me by because it kept on walking down the trail. So at this point, yeah, wasn't even looking at me. It was just continuing, just slowly meandering. So I snapped a couple photos again. And then as it crossed in front of where I was on the path, where I stepped off, it went and it sniffed the ground, it looked over at me, and then it came off the path. So that's the point that I realized, okay, this is a different type of encounter than what I've had before. This appears to be a bear that is interested in following me. So yeah, at that point, now, unfortunately, I stepped off the path and the wind is perpendicular to me and the bear. So I'm now again standing, trying to make myself look as big as possible, yelling at it. It's about 30 feet away. But again, this bear just has no fear of people or me at all. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, should I like wait for it to walk up to me and spray it? But it wasn't charging, and kind of in all my bear training, and what I was thinking of is, okay, if this bear charges, I stop, I spray a screen for it to run through. Hopefully that screen deters it. If it keeps going through that screen of spray, then you just focus on continuing to spray the piss out of it in its face. So that's what I was planning on doing. This bear wasn't charging me, but also was continuing just to walk towards me. So I was thinking, should I throw a rock or a stick at it? But they don't teach you that, and that can make a bear more aggressive if you do that. So that's when I switched tactics, and that's what you see in the video. So now I'm about 400 meters away from my car. I switched to just more of a calm voice of, hey bear, it's okay, whoa bear. And just, I'm trying to walk back to my car. You don't ever want to turn and run from a bear. That can trigger a predatory response. So basically I knew where I was in the meadow. I'm used to this area. I knew there wasn't anything that was really going to trip me up. So I started just kept facing the bear, kept my bear spray on it, checking back, obviously, making sure I wasn't gonna stumble into something else or get trapped in, say, some blowdown. But yeah, so now I'm just trying to make my way back to the car, speaking calmly to the bear, letting it know I'm not a threat, but also I'm not panicking, and just trying to give off calm energy. And I'm hoping that the bear loses interest and walks away. So then, yeah, I've started filming midway through that encounter. The photographer in me, so yeah, this bear's following me. It's kind of back and forth. It would climb up a tree, and at that point I would start yelling at it, because lots of times a scared bear will tree itself, but this didn't seem to be that behavior. But photographer in me was like, oh, that'd be a great photo of it on the tree. But knowing how fast these things can move, like the survivalist in me and the person that doesn't want to die, I was like, no, you have to keep holding your bear spray. But at that point, that's when I realized, okay, I do have a phone here. And what I was thinking at that point was my wife is very anxious and nervous around bears. She has had kind of an encounter where she didn't have the training I had. She was a friend, and they did some things that aren't recommended with bears. So I was thinking, okay, this is kind of worst case scenario for my wife. I can show her specifically what to do in this situation. So that's kind of what was in my mind as I was taking it out and filming that. And yeah, so it follows me for about 3 minutes in the video. Eventually it just never actually charges, but at the end you'll see it gets quite close. In hindsight, I should have sprayed it earlier, but like I said, I was waiting for that charge. But yeah, it definitely changes its body language a fair bit. It starts approaching me directly, looking directly at me, curling its lips, and just kind of head forward, ears forward, and approaching very confidently. And at that moment, it was probably about 8 to 10 feet away. And that's okay. I guess this is time. So time to see if it works. And I just let out a tiny little spray of the bear spray, and it instantly turned it around. So this bear that any shouting or like stomping make myself look big, aggressive, none of that worked. But a quarter or an eighth of a second of bear spray turned it around instantly. So yeah, that was basically the experience. And walked back to the car. My wife was getting a little bit worried because I had been gone for a little longer than she thought. And so she's like, yeah, I was getting worried. Are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm okay. And did you find the bear? Yeah, I found the bear. I took a few shots. So we get into the car and I pass her my phone and say, well, you should look at this. And yeah, that's when she she saw it and she's, oh my God, are you okay? And say, I'm okay. Yeah, like but yeah, it was a pretty wild experience. So yeah, that was basically how it went down. And then yeah, like you said, I got the footage and ended up putting it online and kind of went from there. So
Holy shit, man. What an absolute pro. Just like classic, so calm and collected. It's so easy for people Monday morning, quarterback things and saying, like, oh, well, I would have done this, I would have done that. I mean, the huge thing with your video is the full context isn't there because it's basically filming just from the sounds of your story. It's the last third maybe of your encounter that you're actually.
Yeah, he's about 10 minutes and that was about 3 minutes of it for sure.
Wow, man. Yeah. And I mean, the fact that you're so calm, cool, and collected, and you've encountered this before, you're a wildland fire guy. You get out your phone to film it so that you can show your wife like an instructive video about like how you deal with an aggressive bear. That is absolutely incredible. And now, millions of people now have also benefited, from your video. So thank God. And you're a professional wildlife photographer, right? So the number of people in the comments who are like, oh my God, what an idiot. Why would you film this when you're being, tracked aggressively like a bear? They don't understand all of this context, which you just gave. It makes total sense what you did. And it's probably going to save lives. The fact that you and save bear lives too, for that matter, because when a bear attack does happen, it's like 9 times out of 10, the bear they call it euthanized, but they shoot the bear.
They're destroyed. Yep.
Destroyed. So it's that's amazing, man. People always, when you're telling the story about, your wife worrying about where you are, right? They're usually when I'm on camping trips in the backcountry, like if I go over a ridge to go to the bathroom, right, from the campsite, you joke to your friends like, guys, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, call heaven and
tell my mom I love her.
Yeah. Call my mother. I tell her I'm not coming home, but your wife is probably like, he was supposed to take like 2 pictures and come back in a minute. And like, it's been 10 minutes. So was she like, was she really worried the fact that you had been gone for 10 minutes, or did she think that was normal?
Well, in our relationship and me doing photography, that is very normal for me to have an estimate of when I come back. And then I have ADHD, so photography is something that I hyper focus on. So at that point, yeah, I'm not aware of time or anything. It's just if I have something amazing in front of me, I can sometimes stay there for hours. So she's become very good at napping in places and stuff. Because yeah, lots of times my 10 minutes turns into an hour turns into 3 hours. So not uncommon, but just the fact that she knew that I was in the area with a bear obviously added a little extra worry to her mind, and rightfully so.
Wow, man. Holy cow. So one of the big comments that was on this video, I think on my Instagram, it's got like 1.7 million views, your video that I reposted, and thousands and thousands of comments. There was a lot of comments, people mistaking or believing that the bear was a grizzly bear. And I could see how people could see that because, as you pointed out in the comments, that it's a cinnamon phase black bear, right? Do you want to tell people what
exactly
it is?
Yeah, we have really terrible common names for bears here, or especially black bear here in Canada. It's a misnomer if you're not aware of of black bear. That's a species. So black bears and grizzly bears are different species, but yeah, black bears can be all different colors. You can even have white black bears in rare occasions. So yeah, you'll have cinnamon, you'll have black, you'll have blonde, sometimes combination of multiple colors. So just because it says bear and people will call grizzlies brown bears, it's not, yeah, not correct in bear identification. You can't just go by color. You go by kind of facial features and whether they have the hump on their back or not, and general size and that kind of thing. And easy where we live in Saskatchewan, we don't have grizzlies. So yeah, you're only going to be encountering black bears there. So I can assure everybody on the internet it was a black bear. And I know all the experts agree with me. But yeah, no, it's if you're in the mountains, that kind of thing, it's generally still the same for black bears and grizzly bears. Same way you should generally react in a situation, whether it's a predatory bear or if it's a bear you've caught by surprise, or if you're trying to just let the bear pass on by or let it know that you're there, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely like, yeah, look online, look at how to react to grizzly bears, how to react to black bears is very similar, but just know where you're at, know what you're going to encounter, and make sure you educate yourself on how to react if you do see a grizzly or a black bear or any other dangerous animal in the environment that you're in.
Right. And it sounds like your reaction to the bear, once you started to notice it was actually coming towards you proactively, that your chain of reactions were all just perfect in terms of being aggressive and loud and big, and it's not working, and you change tactics, you get your bear spray out, and then finally it got too close and you actually spray the guy. And it's wild when you watch the video about how quickly the bear's demeanor, it just turns off. It goes 180 degrees.
Yeah.
That bear spray, once it hits its, I guess they call it olfactory senses or whatever, right? Like your
Exactly.
eyes, your nose, and your mouth. It just puts its head down a little bit and turns around and starts walking steadily in the next direction. So it's like whatever that is in that bear spray, that bear was not liking it.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of actually, as you've seen it, hate on the internet comes from as well. There's just a lot of people aren't educated on what bear spray is, and a lot of people thought that, like you said, I was doing it for internet fame, which I can assure you is not the case. I take photos and I never put them on social media. I'm not a huge internet media guy, but that's changed a little bit since then. But yeah, basically, people think that I was hurting the bear or that kind of thing, or that like this is something it's super cruel to the animal, but it's actually quite the opposite. As you said, if there is a negative encounter of a bear, and honestly, I'm thankful that I was the one that this bear ran into. This is a hiking trail that is open, public is on it. Unfortunately, I would say the majority of people in our neck of the woods, and I think most places, don't carry bear spray with them. People are a bit more on it when they're in grizzly bear country, but black bear country, people don't seem to have the same education on it. So I'm thankful that it was me, and that I knew how to react, and that it was a happy ending in the end with this bear. And hopefully we did teach it a lesson so that it doesn't approach people. And and even, we did. I saw it later that week. This is where I work, so I saw it during work hours. I talked to our wildlife. Obviously, I called our duty officer and our wildlife management people right after the encounter. In parks, if you do have something like this, definitely contact the park staff and let them know. So did that, and so I got the spray on it. Wildlife officer came out that night, couldn't find it, but later on that week, I saw it in a similar area. Definitely was the same animal. So I called our wildlife officers and said, hey, bear's here in the ditch. If you do want to try to do some hazing, so they'll get out paintballs or chalk balls and just do some hazing deterrence. So again, people might think it's cruel, but this is actually for the animal so that they can start to properly fear people as they naturally do. So yeah. And thankfully after that, we actually didn't have any more issues with that bear that I'm aware of. So a lot of people say it's very hard to teach an animal to change its behavior, but yeah, this bear had actually had food rewards before. It was spotted on a gas or a golf course eating condiments. Picture was taken of it, I think, actually earlier that day of when I did the video. So that's why it had, I think, lost its fear of people, was being around it, getting food rewards. But I think the spray and the chalk ball, we were actually, it appears to be, we're able to teach the bear to fear humans again. So
absolutely, man. Yeah, because if it's had a few, say 2, 3, or 4 positive reinforcements around humans in its life, you can see the logic in trying to giving it some negative reinforcements around humans to rebalance
definitely
that in that bear's life, especially if you don't know what its history is. Like you said, it's best to be rude but not sadistic, with a bear that you fought.
Exactly.
Because if you're trying to call it in and feed it peanuts, oh my God, nothing good is going to come of that. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you said, it's for humans. It's also for the bears, because if you're not treating them this correct way to behave, then bad things are going to happen for all involved. So good on you, man. That's an excellent point. Yeah, and it was kind of interesting to see those comments too on the video. People not recognizing the behavior of the bear, because you could almost interpret the bear, someone who hasn't seen a lot of bear activity, as it's coming towards you in the video, and it's basically running between the trees and running up the trees and kind of looking down on you. One of the comments in there, I think the person was, I believe it was some kind of wildlife biologist or like forest tech person, and they were saying that's like classic aggressive behavior, like running up those trees. The bear is not trying to play with you. Like those are aggressive signals that it's sending. And but you could see, I guess, how people could misinterpret that. But yeah,
it does kind of look like a puppy dog that's like kind of interested in, but they're very much not that. They are wild animals, and like you said, it's, even if it seems like it's not an aggressive encounter, if an animal is following you, it can change in the blink of an eye. So yeah, and that was, it's funny, yeah, because everybody obviously has a different take on it, and we have biologists and that kind of thing, and it wasn't particularly aggressive. Like there's predatory videos of predatory bears following people, and those ones, you can tell it's a one-track mind. They're not weaving back and forth, that kind of thing. They're on the trail and they were stalking. This to me and to some other experts have said, like, yeah, this is kind of interesting behavior, but common, actually, they say, in kind of that 2, 3, 4-year-old bear who is just got kicked out by the mother, and they're trying to find their own way in nature and interacting in the world. And that's kind of where, well, it's like a teenager, right? They're not fully developed brains. They're kind of in that adolescent stage. They might do some dumb things, or they're testing out limits, that kind of thing. They're curious. So I have talked with other people, and they say, yeah, that's where they've had their most intense bear encounters, are usually in that age range, where they're kind of those young, curious. Like I said, this one had some food rewards in the past. So just makes for very interesting discussion, and talking to all different experts, and even most of them are fairly consistent, the opinions, but it's for sure interesting behavior, definitely.
Yeah, man. Holy cow. Well, is now that you've experienced this, and then you've talked to a lot of experts and stuff, is there anything you would have done differently in this interaction with this bear, now that you know what you know, to Monday morning quarterback yourself? Like, to me, it sounds like you did everything perfectly textbook, but yeah, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, hindsight's 2020, and definitely wasn't perfect. I think it was good enough, seeing as I did get out in one piece, and the bear was also taught a lesson, and it was safe for them. But generally, one thing that I didn't have, and I usually always do, is an air horn. So in the animal kingdom, loud noises generally are deterrents, right? Like, you have animals that roar and they make loud noises at each other. So an air horn is actually quite a good deterrent. So usually that's my first line. And I have used it before, and it has been effective. I just didn't have it with me in the car at that point. As I said, ADHD, lots of times I misplace my things. So I wouldn't have gone out and done that if I didn't have my bear spray at the very least. But it's nice to have the air horn. I wish I had put a little disclaimer on the video before I put it out. about yeah, the steps I took before I got to where I was, of when I actually changed my behavior towards the bear, of no longer making myself look large, loud, holding my ground, trying to get this curious bear to move away from me. But thankfully, there are a lot of people that, yeah, they might have called me an idiot, but rightfully so. If I didn't do that first, I probably would have called myself an idiot. But I did try that first, didn't work with this bear, and I have explained that to people. But yeah, if you only see the video and don't know the backstory, for sure, there's valid critiques of, hey, this person should have not been walking away from the bear, should have not been talking calmly, should have been in a loud, aggressive voice, that kind of thing. And that's true. I did try it, didn't work with this bear, so that's why I switched over to try to not make the bear aggressive, as it wasn't acting aggressive, but it was certainly still following me. And yeah, there is times in that video where, like I said, in my mind, where I was at was I fell back on training. So my training was, yeah, wait for a bear to charge, use your bear spray, plant your feet, like I said, spray that screen. Hopefully that deters it. If not, then continue to spray as it gets closer. That didn't happen. This bear never did an actual charge of me. So that's what I was waiting for. And there's critiques of people saying, oh, look at, he was calling it, he was baiting it in, he was just trying to get, he could have sprayed it. And it's like, I can't get my dog to come to me when I'm calling it. So I don't think a wild animal is trained for that. And also, yeah, that's where I was at. So in hindsight, yeah, I would give it a little spray, especially now knowing how effective it is. If it does get within range, these sprays have 20 to 30 feet. So you actually do have a decent range, and you do have about 8 seconds of spray. So just a little kind of warning spray. For sure, I will be a lot more, hopefully it doesn't happen again, but with my line of work and my hobbies, I'm not going to not go and continue to take photos of bears or be in the wilderness or camp or that kind of thing. I feel more confident now. But I also have learned a bit more, so I'll be able to deal with it even better. So yeah, spray a little bit sooner if it's within range. Don't wait for it to charge. But if it's a bear that is following you, don't just take out your spray and spray any bear that you see. But if it's in this type of situation, for sure, I would spray a little bit sooner. Yeah, and then wouldn't have that same experience, or I guess the video. But video is not the point. It's all about getting out safe. And thankfully, like you said, this video has showed some people how to properly act if you're in that scenario where being loud doesn't work.
For sure, man, for sure. Yeah. And, it's really interesting to pick up on the point you said about spraying a little screen first. And then if it comes through the screen, then narrowing in and just, constant dousing it basically right into the face, like in between the eyes. There is a story of a elk hunter who got attacked by a grizzly bear in Montana. I believe this was 2 or 3 years back. And this relates to your experience. And he was in a meadow as well. The grizzly bear just started charging him straight up. Mm-hmm. He deployed his bear spray. I'm not sure if he did a screen or like a concentrated shot, but the bear basically ran right through the cloud, got to him, got him down, was starting to gnaw on his head and his arms and stuff. But within about 10 seconds, the bear left. But it backed off because it's just
it started to burn.
Face. Right. Yep. So it's interesting because your bear was moving at like a relatively slow pace for most of it. But if it was charging full bore, it's very interesting that you might be in that kind of scenario where it could get through the screen, but it's going to kick in pretty quick. And an interesting thing with this hunter, he was scouting. He didn't have a firearm with him. He then got up. He made it, I think, about a mile down the trail. If you've heard about the story, and
I watched the video of him filming himself afterwards because he's at his truck and he's fully bloodied, and yeah, it is insane for sure. So I'm happy my video wasn't like that.
Yeah, man. Oh my God. I mean, that would be insane. But yeah, the bear came after him, right? I guess it collected its senses, or maybe it didn't get enough of the spray into its, its eyes and its nose and its mouth. Tracked him down on the trail, attacked him again, and I believe he sprayed it again. I believe even that he might have been on the ground as he was spraying it. And again, the bear, left him after a few seconds, but it still did a ton of damage. Like I think he had a protruding fracture in his arm, right? His arm was broken and the bone was sticking through the skin, and he had puncture wounds in his skull. And the guy, I guess, was so high on adrenaline, he could still pick up his phone and take the selfie video. He's like, I'm going to drive myself to the hospital, guys.
Yeah, it was wild. I know, I saw that. It was insane.
Isn't that crazy, man? So I want to know your opinion on that video, and also to bring into this question is, what are your thoughts on the folks who talk about the whole gun versus spray conversation? Because in that scenario, right, to me, if the guy had a gun, people would say, okay, this is an example bear spray doesn't work. To me, it's an example bear spray does work. And if the guy had a gun and no spray, if he had fired at that bear as it was charging him and either missed it, injured it, he would probably be dead right now, right? So, that's kind of my take on it. What do you think about that whole story?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I guess the safest is to have all the tools, right?
Yeah.
To have air horn, bear spray, gun, that kind of thing. But for us in Canada, like you said, a lot of people don't have their PAL. They don't have access to firearms, and there's a lot of our areas in Canada, our forested areas, especially in the national parks, where it is illegal to carry a firearm. So yeah, we basically, and especially I'm an employee of the park, and I'm obviously not going to be breaking the law. I do have my PAL. But no, I don't carry firearms when I'm in the park. It is what it is. That is the law. And there could be issues with that if people start doing that that are created. So we don't want to go there. And also, as you said, for the people that say, oh, you should have just shot it, that kind of thing. This bear, I'm hopeful that it's still alive and that it didn't have to be destroyed. It didn't attack me. It wasn't extremely aggressive. It was curious, got too close, lost its fear of people. But I do think that would have been overkill in this scenario. Obviously, bear spray works very effectively. And there is experts that say bear spray is actually more effective than firearms. A lot of people basically just going and actually looking, not just theoretics, but of encounters of animals where people use guns as deterrents and where people use bear spray as deterrents, and bear spray does win out over time. Sure, if you're an ace shot, it's super steady with a bear charging you. Maybe you're going to be able to take down that bear. But the odds of the average person having that skill set and being able to stay calm in a situation like that and having kind of that one or two shots at it before the bear's on top of you versus bear spray, which it's very, you don't have to be accurate. It's very, can be wide. You spray that screen, you just point and spray, and it's not just one shot. It's more effective of a tool, I believe. And as you said, it's not perfect. That bear still did aggressively go after the person. It did seem to turn him around after, but then it did come back, and but that guy's alive, and I'm sure he's probably a proponent of bear spray as well. He probably would say he would like to have both, and I agree with that. But yeah, overall, if I had to choose one or the other, I'm going with bear spray.
Very interesting, man. Yeah, because it's interesting. The Meateater. I don't know if you know the Meateater television show that's on Netflix.
Yeah, that's Steve Rinella, right?
Steve Rinella, that's right. I mean,
he's a legend.
Yeah, legend, right? They've been attacked a few times, charged, and actually literally attacked by a grizzly bear, charged by black bears in British Columbia, et cetera, et cetera. And they basically say the exact same thing as you, which is, if I had to choose one, it'd be bear spray. Because they're out in the bush hunting, they always have rifles with them. Anyway, so they do have guns. But one of the things they say is they had a grizzly bear come into their camp at night, and it was complete pandemonium. Apparently at one point, Janis Patelis, the Latvian eagle of the crew, was apparently on the back of the grizzly somehow. That somehow happened. And
those Eastern Europeans.
Yeah, that's pretty legendary. But if you have 8 guys around a campfire and there's a bear, marauding in between you, there is almost 100% chance you're going to end up shooting somebody else.
Yes.
In your group, right? Can you imagine like
Yep.
shooting your wife? Oh my God. That's the other
Yeah.
thing about bear spray is that there's not that risk there of killing somebody
Mm.
else. Because also,
No, exactly.
if you do have a firearms license, you always have to make sure the backdrop of your shot that it's
Yep.
not just going to travel for miles and miles and end up hitting somebody else as well, right? That's something that's really difficult to do if a bear is charging. But yeah, and the other thing, like here in Ontario, so we don't have grizzly bears. There's been a few grizzly bear sightings in the far northwest of the province, up along, Hudson Bay there, on
Yep.
the Manitoba border. There's been a few. They're basically surmising that, with climate change, it's getting warmer, and there are some grizzly bears kind of encroaching into former polar bear territory. But there's no reliable grizzly bear presence in Ontario. It's all black bears. But why am I telling you this story? Grizzly bears, black bears. Oh yeah, with black bears, many people don't think that black bears are dangerous. That's a big thing. And if you check the stats, right, the history of black bear attacks
Kill more.
in North America, they kill more. Yeah,
They
you
do.
guys got to check out the Wikipedia entry on black bear fatalities on humans. There's a separate one, I believe, for grizzly bear fatalities. But yeah, I mean, 17, humans killed by black bears in the last, I guess, 13 years, since 2010. So it's extremely rare. But it does happen. I've told the story about being in a Bass Pro Shops after I had a bear come up to my tent in the middle of the night, my hammock actually. And the bear, I was yelling and screaming at it, and it turned around and left, but it was going mighty slow. Like it wasn't too concerned about the fact I was yelling at, scared the shit out of me. And then the guy behind the Bass Pro counter literally was like, why are you buying this? I'm like, well, for black bears. He's like, you don't need this for black bears. And I was about
That's crazy.
tell him the story about the stats and what happened to me last night. And I was just like, you know what? I don't have the time and the energy. I'm just going to buy it and leave. So, you definitely got to be aware for sure. I know you got to go now, Curtis. My final is about the recent attack, grizzly bear attack in Alberta, on the two campers with their dog. And they did. So the couple was killed. The dog was killed. I believe this was in Banff National Park, right?
It was, yeah.
And they did find the canister. One of the bear spray canisters was partially or fully deployed. What do you think happened there? Does that change your opinion about bear spray versus guns, or anything there? Like, what do you think of that whole story?
Yeah, obviously it's a tragedy. I'm sure we don't have all the information about that yet, but yeah, horrible situation. As you said, I have heard the same thing. Excuse me, I'm not even 100% sure where all the sources are coming from, that kind of thing. So I like to kind of reserve speaking on it too much before the actual 100% facts come out. But fact is that, yeah, like I've never said bear spray is 100% effective, and I don't think anybody has said that. And even same thing, like if you have a firearm, like, yeah, maybe you get off a shot, but like if you're asleep, I think it was, as you said, I'm pretty sure they were in the tent. So yeah, maybe you would have a firearm there, easy access, but who knows? I guess, yeah, now it gets people thinking about it. And I think because of that, it is a very good reminder. Yeah, it's really unfortunate if the bear spray didn't work in this scenario, obviously, because yeah, it's a tragedy. Two people and a dog, and I'm sure the bear, I don't know if it was already destroyed, but that will definitely be a bear that if it hasn't been already, it will be destroyed if they know which one it is. So yeah, it's hard to say without the facts, to be honest. But yeah, I would say if you're in an area, you do have your pal, you do have the means to have a firearm with you. It's not a bad thing to have. But as you said, there is other things you have to be careful with that. It takes more training, I think, than bear spray, that kind of thing. So if in this scenario bear spray didn't work, that doesn't change my opinion on carrying bear spray, or even that bear spray versus firearms. I still would prefer to have bear spray over firearms, no matter what. Yeah, it's maybe for whatever reason this bear had more resistant to bear spray. Like I've heard even in people with pepper spray, that kind of thing. I have friends in law enforcement. There's just some people that aren't affected. nearly as much by that. The vast majority of the population is, but so I have no reason to believe why that wouldn't be the case in the animal kingdom, that maybe it was just really bad luck that this bear, or who knows, maybe it was expired bear spray, or they didn't get a direct spray on it. Hard to say, but yeah, I know it'll open up that debate again of guns versus bear spray. Again, they're in a national park, so unfortunately yeah, if you're a person that would want to have that tool, it isn't a tool for you. So in a national park, if you're going to be following the law, so if you're someone that feels you can't safely be in the bear country, then yeah, it's you got to be careful. You got to you are taking responsibility, and you are taking on a risk whenever you do go out into the bush. But do want to say that these occurrences are exceedingly rare, extremely rare. So don't want to scare anybody. Say don't go out. But yeah, what main thing is when you are camping, think about it. Learn, educate yourself. Say in the tent. And again, I think these people were very experienced outdoors people. They went camping a lot from what I hear. So I don't have any reason to believe that they had attractants in their tent. But it's a good thing to talk about, that if you have to make sure you don't have anything that smells edible, or even empty beer cans, that kind of thing in your tent, because that can attract wildlife. And I'm not saying that these people did, but yeah, just anything that will attract animals to your tent or where you want to avoid that. And yeah, just learn about bear safety, learn how to act responsibly, and you can still recreate safely in the woods. And yeah, heart goes out to the people affected by that. My co-workers in Parks Canada that responded to it, the families and everything. It is a tragedy, and hopefully, yeah, people can learn a bit more about bear safety through this horrible situation and prepare themselves so that hopefully something like this doesn't happen again.
Excellent points, my friend. Yes. And, even though there was a canister deployed, they don't know what happened. Maybe they prematurely deployed it. Maybe they, like they sprayed it out and it didn't even touch the bear. It's another reason.
Maybe it was before the bear got through the tent. Yeah. Maybe it was spraying the inside of the tent, and then maybe that kind of incapacitated them before the bear had actually ripped through it. It's hard to say. We don't know, but hopefully there'll be some facts that we get so that people can be better prepared, and hopefully, like you talked about, that hopefully there's something that can come from this in keeping people safe in the future, and some lessons learned. Not saying that these people did anything wrong. I think was probably just one of those 1 in a million chances that something bad happened, and just a sad story.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. And, it's like if you're on a multi-day trip or you're a week-long trip, bring a backup canister too, because I bet many people don't even know that the canister only has 8 seconds of discharge if you have a full-size canister. So you might get through that and be like, oh, damn, we're out. And the other interesting thing is the fact they had a dog there. I actually was listening to a bear biologist on a podcast recently saying that many times they find in bear counters, if you do have a dog, it can actually be an attractant, in that the dog will actually proactively go up over a ridgeline, try to engage with the bear, realize, oh my God, I'm going to get eaten. And then they run back to the owners and actually bring the bear back to the owners, right? So maybe that's like an interesting factoid there, like keeping dogs on leash if you're at your campsite.
Keep your dogs on a leash, exactly. Yeah.
And then just the final exit question, Curtis, before you go and try to fix your alternator that Chad Kroger has destroyed, is we always, this is usually the first question I ask is, if you had to get eaten alive, asshole first, by a predatory animal in Ontario, but for you, I'll leave it open to in Canada. If you had to get taken out, Curtis, by a single predatory animal, which animal would it be and why?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Maybe I will go with black bear, so that some of the people on the internet can have their schadenfreude that I finally got my comeuppance for hurting the poor bear. That's I'll say that, or else a badger, because that would make for a hell of a story. We'll go black bear, badger as a tie.
Oh my God.
That's a good question. Is that a one that you pose to everybody at the end of your podcast, or is that going to maybe become the next trademark for Wild Ontario.
That's awesome, man. Usually it's the very first question I ask, to kind of
Oh,
set
okay.
a
Yeah,
humorous tone, but
break the ice.
I forgot with
Yeah.
you that I might cut this and put this right at the very beginning. Uh, that's awesome, man. What an answer. The people in the comment section would love that. Oh my God.
Yeah. I did. I rubbed myself in bacon grease, and I was doing this for the internet clout. So finally coming clean on that. But yeah, somebody will cut that and take out the sarcasm, but I'm sure saying it was him. It's he was doing it.
People would love that, man. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you for your service with Parks Canada as a Wildland fire crew chief, man. It's greatly appreciated, your service to Canada as well. So thank you. Good.
Thank you. It's what I love doing. So it's just so happens to be a service that was needed very much this year. But thank you very much, and great connecting with you. And I look forward to following along with the podcast and the adventures.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the Wild Ontario Podcast, Episode 6. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and to our YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review if you can. And you can follow Curtis Matwishyn as well over on Instagram. You can find my post on Instagram to see what his handle is to find him. Thank you so much to Curtis. And we got tons of episodes coming, guys. I got 10 episodes in the hopper I haven't even posted yet. So thanks for listening to the Wild Ontario Podcast, you Wild Ontarians.